Hey guys, welcome back to another Weird Wednesday. I'm Ashers, and this is
Dr. X.
How was your weekend, Dr. X? You do anything exciting?
Yeah, actually, it was a very good 3-day weekend. Um, it was very well deserved. Um, I don't know what should I start with. So, first thing I actually have a list of things that I want to pimp here.
Oh yeah.
First thing that I want to say is that I watched the Smiley Face Killers movie.
Yeah, how
That
was
we
it?
kind It was fucking terrible.
Oh,
It was an hour and a half. So I look at the running time and I'm thinking like, okay, cool.
not bad, right?
Um, written by Bret Easton Ellis. The trailer was very homoerotic, and I'm like, okay, I'm down. Mentions Crispin Glover all over the promotional materials. He's part of the cast. Okay, so it's got the weirdo factor, and then I watch it, and it's basically an hour and 10 minutes of a melodrama about a high school or a grad student. I'm sorry, college grad student that like goes off his meds and is cheating on his girlfriend with this other dude, and is being stalked by the Smiley Face Killers. And then the abduction happens in like the last 15-20 minutes, and there's a little bit of a kind of cat and mouse game tussle, and then he's killed. And it's a surprise. So I mean, I understand, like from a filmmaker standpoint, you know, if someone is going to task you to make a movie about the Smiley Face Killers, I mean, there's a couple different ways you can go about it, and we know this as horror movie fans, right?
Right.
And what they tried to do, the filmmakers tried to do with this, is to do just the story of one victim, right? Maybe not. He doesn't exactly have all of the traits of all the other victims, but it's kind of like a very strong sampling of all these people that are, you know, reportedly showed up and were victims of this death cult or whatever. So that's one way to do it. Another way to do it is you follow the serial killer. You do something more like Friday the 13th, where it's all about Jason, and it's all about, you know, the 15 people that he kills before the final girl subdues him, right? They didn't do that. They chose to focus on, because it's, you know, it's not a mass murder situation. It's one by one. They chose to focus on one victim, tell his story, and it's more about the victim's story, his personal life, than the actual Smiley Face Killer shit. So it was basically boring as fuck.
So did they portray it as, and you know, excuse me if this is a spoiler, but I need to know, is it portrayed as one killer or is it portrayed as a group?
No, it's a group. It's a group of about 3 individuals, and there's some kind of Wiccan cult that is. I don't want. Maybe I shouldn't use the word Wiccan there, but it has. There's a very strong connection to the water, and that's obviously why they're doing it. Now, in this movie, all of the deaths happen up and down the coast of the Atlantic Ocean in California.
Okay.
Right.
Oh, wow.
Or Pacific Ocean. I'm sorry. So it's not exactly the same situation that we have in real life,
Sure.
supposedly in real life, where it's up and down the 94 corridor and it's just in bodies of water along the way. This is very much tied to the ocean. It's very much a California thing, which, as far as what I remember from our show research, there really wasn't cases. It was more like a Midwest East Coast thing. California was kind of untouched by it. As far as I know, but I could be wrong. And yeah, it was just, you know, you're going to make a movie about this and you're going to hire Bret Easton Ellis to write it. And, you know, kind of what I said in my tweet was that it wasn't gay enough. Like it was frustratingly like, because the fact that he's like a closet case and like he's cheating on his girlfriend with this other dude and like,
Oh, yeah, it sounds like he's really unlikable.
I mean, yeah. There's no likable characters in it. The girlfriend's a twat. The fucking. Yeah, they're all like, but not like, you know, kind of like 30-something grad students you love to hate. It's not like that. It's not like the cast of Jersey Shore. They're just kind of like, there's no redeeming qualities. Like all they do is have problems and shit. And you know what I mean? Like they're not like, you don't really connect with any of them. And all the guys kind of look alike. They're all like twink fucking, you know. And I just wish that it really made me wish that Greg Araki had done it. And I don't know if you're familiar with his works, but he did like Doom Generation and Nowhere and Mysterious Skin, which is one of the best alien abduction movies of all time.
Really, Mysterious Skin is on my list. So
ends up having nothing to do. Spoiler alert: has nothing to do with alien abduction, but in the meantime, it's very, very good.
Yeah.
And definitely it scratches all those itches that that smiley face killer is just kind of
Didn't have.
aggravated.
Yeah.
So yeah, I definitely cannot recommend that movie. And I usually don't like to shit on stuff, which is why I didn't try to write it up for anything. For
What's your rating out of 10? What would you give it?
oh, like a fucking 2. I mean, it was
Oh.
yeah, it was abysmal. I mean, for the Bret Easton Ellis factor, I don't mind the fact that I paid $5 to rent it, but
Yeah.
like, you know, I think me and my kid watched Lethal Weapon 2 before that, and I honestly had more of an enjoyable time watching that movie with Mel Gibson, the anti-Semite, for like the 30th time than I did watching
Trying to watch this new one.
yeah, just didn't do it.
Okay. Okay.
So that was one night. Another thing is we finally got around to shooting that Killer Santa movie.
Yeah,
And
I seen your pictures.
yeah, that was put on hold. It's called Sleigh Ride, and it's written and directed by my buddy Derek Brash.
SLAY.
Yes, of course. And come on, we're not. You know, this is we know what we're doing over here. So yeah, he's a friend and we've collaborated a ton of times. We've been making movies together off and on for like 20 years,
Mm.
and we just kind of did a bit part, but it kept getting bounced around because of COVID and stuff. And finally got a chance to film it this weekend, which means we had to like redecorate the house for
Yeah.
Christmas.
My
And
lazy ass, I would have just kept everything up. I don't care if it took place in May or June. I would just
hey, we got a movie.
These here.
shoot movies. I'm sure it's not the weirdest thing hanging up in your house because of a fucking because it's going to be on camera because it's part of set dressing. So there was that. The one thing I want to talk about that though is that while he was there, he also, besides being a filmmaker, he also hosts a lot of film festivals.
Okay.
He does it through Film Freeway or whatever. And I mean, it's legit. You get an IMDb cred and you get a trophy if you win. And he does screenings either. He'll do like a theatrical, he'll run out a movie theater around here. Or the last couple they had to screen online.
Sure.
But I mean, they're legit festivals. And sometimes he asked me to be like a judge for him, which is, I don't get paid for it. It's like me doing him a favor. He's like, come on, we need like 10 judges. Like, will you be one?
Yeah.
And I've done it a couple times and then I just started telling him no. But he asked me to do the newest festival he's got coming up is the Real Doc Fest, which is documentaries. And yeah, so I wanted to mention on the show because obviously stuff that if anyone's work, I know your work, obviously yours isn't going to be ready, but like
Sure.
if anyone else is working on a documentary, short form doesn't have to be like 70 minutes or anything. It can be, 5 or 15. If you have any documentaries on any kind of paranormal stuff or cryptid shit, submit it. You can find it on Facebook. It's the Real Doc Fest. You can hit me on Twitter and I can give you a better link to it or something. Or I know we always say we'll put it in the show notes and then that never happens. So maybe if I think of it, I'll tweet out a link to it from the show's Twitter page.
I could definitely put it in the description. You'll just have to send me a link to it.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I think submissions are open for another couple weeks, and then I know that I'll have to start watching the movies.
When does this take place? I mean, I would like to watch them. I'd like to be a part of the festival somehow.
Oh, to watch the documentaries?
Yeah.
I don't know if he's got so he asked me to do this one and another one, and I said no to the other one because it sounded like a lot of fucking work. And this one I agreed to. I think they're waiting to see whether or not COVID restrictions let up.
Okay.
And they can do a theatrical one. Because I know we've done theatrical ones in the past and I've gone to them. And usually it's like an all-day thing. It'll be like during the weekend. It'll be all day. And they just screen the movies, from noon until 10 p.m. or something. But the past couple ones, he's had to do online only. So how it works is you like pay your $5 for your ticket and you get a password so that you can log in and you can watch all the stuff
virtually. Yeah.
Yeah, which is kind of like not. I mean, whatever. It still supports the filmmakers, but let's face it, like you want to go in the theater and watch stuff. It's the
I
whole,
agree. Yeah, I
you know.
agree. I agree. But for the
So I
time
think,
being, we have what we have.
yeah. So I think submissions are open for a little bit, and then I would say the festival would probably take place in the spring.
Okay. Well,
Actually, let me just kind of mumble here while I look it up on Facebook. The stuff I should know already. Yeah, the Real Doc Fest. There's a Facebook page, and I don't know. It doesn't. I don't think they have it
if
decided.
they
Oh
don't
yeah,
have
it's
it
May 1st.
May 1st, okay.
Oh, and it is. Yeah, they have the Westin Lombard Chicago. Well, yeah. So it's the cool thing about you and your friends working in hotels is that you can always find places to host your shit.
That's
So
true. Okay, so it's
um,
in Chicago.
yeah. So yeah, if you're interested in submitting, please do. And I'm a judge, so if it's cool, you'll definitely. And I'm a very persuasive speaker, believe it or not. So if it's good, I'll definitely. And you mentioned that you're a fan of the show. I'll throw some weight your way.
Ooh, well,
So those,
that's a sweet deal.
yeah. So those are that was this weekend. You know, I'm not really doing too much creative stuff besides the podcast.
Yeah.
Just trying to figure out what 2021 is going to hold.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
understand. I understand. Well, speaking of movies based off of events, I've been doing this. I've been on this other podcast. I've been cheating, and I've been on this other podcast.
We're poly here. Come on, you know
Oh
that.
yeah, that's right. The poly podcast. Yeah, variety hour. But so I've been on this other podcast now twice a week. I don't know if they want me to. I think they want me to continue to be there twice a week, which is a very big commitment. But you know, I don't think they're too pressed on it. They've got each other. There's, you know, two hosts and they've got each other. So that's great. We've been working on this 3-part series talking about aliens and more specifically alien abductions. And so they keep having me on because that's kind of, you know, more my wheelhouse than anybody that they've had on before, I guess. And anyway, spoiler alert, they are almost pretty certain that they're going to have Travis Walton on the show this Friday. And so we were talking about different, you know, famous abduction cases. We talked about the Hill case. Obviously, we talked about the Walton case. And I went in pretty hard on old Travis. And I kind of I feel a little bad now about it, but I don't know. I don't know if I'm the right pick, if they're going to have him on the show, if I'm the right person that they want to be on it, because you know there's a lot about his story that doesn't really add up, and that I've always questioned. And you know I'm going to ask him those hard questions. I fully intend on asking him the hard questions, and so you know hopefully they're okay with that. But you know my thing about it is that you know I don't care what your story is. If you know, went up into an alien spaceship and you were gone for 5 days, great, cool, wonderful. That's amazing. As long as your story's true. And if I ask you these difficult questions and you have a hard time answering them or just straight out refuse to answer, then obviously there's an issue with your alleged story, you know? So I guess I need to stop beating myself up over trying to be an honest reporter and asking the hard questions that everybody wants answered, you know? So, we'll see how that goes. But I tried to watch Fire in the Sky and I couldn't finish it.
Well, once you get through the 2 abduction scenes, there's really it's more of like a character drama. I mean, it was terrifying as a kid to watch.
It probably was, yeah. It was early.
I was 12.
Too.
I was 12 when it came out, and I remember seeing it in the theater and not being prepared for that scene when he wakes up in the when the maple syrup hits his face and he has a flashback of. Did you get to that part at least?
I didn't even get no.
Oh Jesus! No, yeah, fast forward through it. Fast forward through like Robert Patrick and the DB Sweeney's who's the cop in it? I forget, but like just get to the abduction shit, because whenever anyone talks to you about that movie, they're not talking about Peter Berg's accent, or like whether or not like Robert Patrick was a realistic like Virginia logger or whatever. Yeah, they're talking about the 2 abduction flashbacks, right?
Okay.
And and it's basically one long scene. There's what happens is they have a welcome home party for him, and he kind of is having some PTSD issues, and he hides underneath the table in the kitchen, and they can't get him to come out, and he's freaking out under the table. And while he does that, he knocks over syrup, which rolls off the side of the table, and it hits him, and then he has this flashback, and it goes to him waking up in the spaceship after he was abducted.
Okay.
And it goes through, he kind of explores the spaceship a little bit. He sees some aliens. It suggests that the Greys, as we know them, are kind of like biomechanical suits. And then it shows, the aliens that are inside, and they basically take him and pull him into another room and rip his clothes off and put this plastic wrap over him that like kind of seals him to the table. And then they shove guts in his mouth for some fucking reason, and then poke him in the eye with some. It's a really terrifying thing. It's that part is very, very well done. And it's a reason that people still talk about it. And it's a reason that it's so famous. It's very artistfully done.
Yeah, I didn't even get to the point to where he had made it back home. So
it's a 5 to 10 minute segment in a 2-hour movie.
Yeah.
Which the rest of it doesn't make up for. My whole thing with Travis Walton is that was my introduction to him and his story, right?
Sure.
And he's somebody that was on Coast to Coast kind of a lot.
Yeah.
And his story, whenever, and this is something that like Whitley Strieber's done, and it's like they start, it was one, and this is something that we've talked about in the show, how like the science changes, and when the science changes, our concept of these things have to kind of change with them, because there's certain things that were said back in the 60s, 70s, and 80s that now are completely contradicted by modern science.
Right.
And what Travis Walton and Whitley Strieber have kind of started to metamorphosize their alien abduction experience into these like these things are like angels of God or something. I don't know. What I was listening to the episode where you were on, and the host was talking about how Travis's story differs from what was shown in the movie, because Travis said that there was more humanoid people, actually human beings, potentially on the spaceship. But that's not. I think that he's actually gone back again and said that he thought it was more of a spiritual encounter and all this shit. And when they start doing the 180 and start talking spiritual shit, it just sounds like they're trying to sell books to like the new age crowd.
Thank you.
You know what I mean? And it's not about alien life form, and it's not about interplanetary travel or extra dimensional travel, whatever. And now it's about fucking trying to sell shit to the people that collect angels.
He's like, very, very Hollywood, and that bothers me. And it feels like he's catering to the group to sell things. And so it's like, and everybody's like, yeah, but he didn't come out and start talking about it immediately. You're right. But once he did come out and start talking about it immediately, he didn't shut the fuck up. And still to this day, doesn't shut the fuck up about it. So,
right.
I'm just saying, listen, I'll talk to the guy. I'll hear his story. There's a lot of, maybe one day we'll cover it on its own, or we'll do alien abductions or something. But, there's a lot about his story that it sounds like bullshit to me. So I don't know. We'll see how that goes. But if he doesn't come on the show, they're pretty confident that he's going to come on. So, but I can't say yes or no. It's not.
Well, yeah. As long as they share his Amazon link, and if he sells 3 ebooks out of it, he came out ahead. I'm gonna make a quick digression real quick and just talk about this kind of stuff. So like there is this guy in Chicago called Christian Piccolini, and I'm going to say his first and last name because he's all over fucking. He'll go on any show that'll have him. And Christian back in the late '80s, early '90s was a skinhead on the south side of Chicago. He was a racist skinhead, and he was a skinhead for a couple years, and then he got out of it, right? And wrote a book about it. and he self-published the book, and the book started to kind of take off a little bit. And whenever these news organizations, whenever someone needed to have a talking head to come on as a reformed skinhead, he came on and he would talk about his book, and he would talk about the 5-10 years he spent as a racist skinhead on the south side of Chicago. And he kind of just was able to kind of piggyback that to the point where like now he's been on CNN as like a talking head about like white supremacy groups, right?
Yeah.
Which kind of ties into today's topic.
Yeah.
Everybody in Chicago fucking hates this dude because at this point he's spent more time. He's fucking trying to sell this book and to fucking sell himself as an authority on skinheads than he ever was the skinhead, right? And when he was a skinhead, he didn't even get up to that much nefarious shit. It's not like he went around kicking the shit out of black people. He would beat up other fucking white kids, right? So like, but this dude was very good at marketing himself. He had a product. Number one, you got to have something to sell. He's got the book. I bought the book. I read it. I wasn't impressed by it.
Is this what the movie Romper Stomper is based off of, this guy?
No. Romper Stomper's like 40 fucking years old. That's Russell Crowe. But I don't know if they've made if they've done a skinhead movie about it. Definitely not American History X. Get that idea out of your fucking head. He's definitely not.
See, that's why I went for Romper Stomper. I know that everybody knows American History X. Not everybody knows Romper Stomper.
Oh yeah, Russell Crowe. Like Russell Crowe's first movie.
Yeah.
So this guy, anyway, were this guy's skinhead? This is the reason I bring this up in comparison to Travis Walton, Christian Piccolini, and Travis Walton. Was Christian Piccolini a skinhead? Yes, he was. Was some of the stuff that he talks about in his book, did it actually happen? Most of it. I'm willing to say 90% of the shit in his book is real. 95% of the shit in his book is real. Yes. Okay. Has he then spun that into a persona which he was able to market, make a lot of money off of, and has he now kind of overstepped his fucking reach and spent more time you know what I mean? He's almost he's more of an authority on being an authority at this point than he is at anything that he would have done 30 years ago.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So like that's the way I look at the fucking Travis Walton thing. Is I'm not saying nothing ever happened to the dude. He could have been, because there's a lot of things about what was he hiding in the woods for 6 days? Did he go on a bender and come back with this ridiculous fucking story? Maybe some stuff did happen, but at this point, I think the myth is so perpetuating, and he's gotten so good at cashing in on it that he's found different ways to keep him and his story relevant. Right. And once again, kind of like Christian, this is the story that at this point is almost 50 years old.
Yeah.
When's the last time? Does Travis say anything happened to him, like in the summer of 2012 or something? Does he have any kind of update or no? Is it like
nothing new? They might remake Fire in the Sky.
Oh, I didn't know about that.
I've been hearing those rumors for a while. I was reading about it recently because I've been doing more research on it, and apparently, I mean, it's just rumors, but they could. Travis wasn't happy with the way the movie turned out. He didn't. It's not that he hated it; he was in it, but it's not that he hated it. It's just that he didn't. It wasn't a great depiction. He said, but that's a Hollywood depiction. It's what it does. So,
right.
There's, and as I was saying that last night on the show, there's not any movie that's based on true events that's actually like word for word what happened. Like that would be boring. So you got to sensationalize. I don't know. We'll probably, like I said, we'll probably get into Travis Walton on a different day because there's a lot to unpack, and because like I said, it's been a newfound interest now because I've been hit with the prospect of interviewing the guy. So I've been really digging and finding different things and finding different claims from natives of the town, from people that worked for the during the investigation, all kinds of stuff. So maybe I'll share my secrets, but I don't want to let anybody on right now and let them know what I'm going to pull out of my sleeve on Friday. So we'll see what happens. But speaking of skinheads and white supremacists, with what's
you want to know something super crazy? I just saw this online.
Yeah.
Travis Walton was on the Joe Rogan Experience today.
Today, really?
Yeah, January 19th, 2021.
That's crazy. That's pretty wild.
That's synchronicity right there.
That is synchronicity. That is.
Or maybe he's on a media tour, and that's why your buddy's able to get him on Friday.
It could be.
He's already done Rogan, so he's like, all right, well.
He's probably been on Rogan a couple times. If this is the first time, I'd be surprised. Maybe it is. I don't know.
I know I've heard him on Coast to Coast tons, but this might be his first time on Rogan.
Yeah.
Rogan doesn't get too much into the UFO stuff because there's not a whole lot. He tries to maintain credibility. So he'll have, I don't even know he'll have like Bob Lazar on, you know what I mean? But he's not going to have like Whitley Strieber or anything fucking goofballs like that.
All right. Well,
okay.
No, that's pretty cool. That's I don't know what to do with that information now. Thanks, universe. We'll see what happens there. So anyway, back to tonight's topic. We've talked about doing this for a while. And I keep putting it off, and I'm still kind of putting it off, if you can't tell. But let's just get into it. Tonight we're going to talk about Q. Now, Pat, you kind of wanted to do this episode because you didn't know a lot about the group. Is that right? And you wanted to research it.
So for me, I think this was like right after I was fortunate enough to join you on this program. We kind of sat down and we came up with a list of topics we'd like to discuss.
Yeah.
This was right at the top of mine. Because I wanted a reason to kind of sit down and do a deep dive, even though like, I'm not saying I didn't research this week's topic, but for someone that had been lobbying to do this for so long, you think I would have spent 3 days on the internet holed up doing this. And it was really just kind of like an afternoon and a half. But
because there's not as much to it as people think. It's actually pretty simple.
Right. Yeah.
So it's not, even though they believe in a lot of different things. Those individual things that they believe in and they follow, those are different topics that need to have their own time or whatever. I mean, because they're just different. So basically. Basically, QAnon appeared in 2017?
Yes, November of 2017.
And that's when this guy shows up on, I think it was 4chan or something, and starts making claims. I don't remember exactly what the claims were because I'm bad at researching, but it doesn't matter. This guy started making all these claims and people started, he was referred to as Q, and he's created this whole group of QAnon, which now has turned from one single guy to a group of people. Now it's more of a mindset than it is a single person. So what the gist of it is that they believe that the entire world is ran by this satanic cult who feed off of children, and like there's big pedophile rings and everything. And they believe that this is the key point of this, that Donald Trump is basically like the savior, and the only one that can oust these people, the only person that's been willing to oust these people and has been actively ousting these people since he's gotten into office. That's pretty much the long and short of it, I guess.
Right. And it kind of ties into before Trump was, right after he was elected, there was a guy that wrote a book called The Trump Prophecy. And they actually made a movie about it, which you can watch for free on Amazon Prime, which is hysterical. And I totally recommend that you watch it.
I haven't watched it.
It's called The Trump Prophecy. My second favorite podcast after us, the Boys Bible Study, they did an episode about it. And basically, it's this guy that had visions that Trump was going to win the election and that Trump was going to fulfill God's prophecy and enter into. There's a lot of fundamental Christians that think that Trump is going to be, because of his foreign policies with Israel, that he's going to be he's going to bring about the end times by like doing this like fucking shit with that's why like he moved the U.S. embassy from in Israel to like their side of it and away from Palestine,
Yeah.
because he's not acknowledging that as that area is Palestinian, he's Israeli, and that is kind of like moving. Once the Jews return to Jerusalem, it's supposed to enter into the fucking final days or something. I don't know. I'm not
He's like the
a.
next. He's like a messiah. He's like a messiah to these people.
But what's so crazy is that like he's a very non-religious, like non-devout person. You know,
Right.
he's got like half a dozen fucking divorces, and he says like terrible shit all the time.
Right.
And but the Christians are like the people that like believe in this Trump prophecy thing are like, yeah, I wouldn't have picked Donald Trump either, but the Lord works in mysterious ways, and they still think that like this is like there's a segment that think that he was chosen by God, and this whole him being this like the one person that's supposed to overthrow these child molesters and everything, that you know, because I mean, let's be honest, like Epstein did have a fucking human trafficking
He did. Yeah.
thing going on, like this stuff,
And
and that's the
it's
problem with
real.
this stuff. It's they take stuff that is true and they come up with their own explanation, and they weave together this greater narrative that is a little bit more problematic. And after going through all the Q stuff, and your friend Ann was nice enough to send me a link to the basically it's the entirety of all the Q dumps are
Yeah.
put together in one PDF that you can read. And you're right, there's not a lot there. And about a third of it's fucking memes. Okay.
Yeah.
Which is even crazier if you think that it's JFK Jr., which we'll get to later.
Oh my
But like,
god. Oh my god.
like JFK Jr. is over there making fucking memes, superimposing Donald Trump's head into a Hunt for Red October poster. Like, motherfucker, I don't think so. But, you know, one of the things that there's a lot of, I don't want to say that it's like where there's smoke, there's fire, but like, you know, one of the memes that they posted was about how the Democratic Party is in bed with mainstream media, and they go through and they talk about all the people that work for ABC News or CNN or whatever that are married to people that worked in the Clinton administration, that worked in politics, that worked in the Obama administration. I mean, look at the Cuomo brothers. Like, that's not weird to you? Like, the fact that Andrew Cuomo is the Democratic governor of New York City and that his brother Chris Cuomo interviews him all the time on CNN. Like, you don't think that you think there's unbiased journalism there? Like, I don't think so. It's just that's just as hinky to me as like when the Bushes were like president, like, you know, where you had one George Bush and then 8 years later you had the other George Bush, and I was like, what the fuck, you know? Does it mean that the world is run by satanic child molesters? No. But
yeah.
But there is an overwhelming amount of evidence to suggest that, like, yeah, there's a lot of husband and wife, mother and daughter family members where one person is in politics and the other is in the media. And how could they potentially exploit those relationships to form a narrative? Right.
Well, and it's not, I mean, I don't think that, you know, even though, like you said, is it unbiased? Well, no, of course it's not. Or, you know, there's definitely a lot of bias going on there. And there's definitely a lot of, you know, making themselves powerful. We all know there's government corruption. Come on, we're not stupid. And I don't think it's far fetched for all these people to be like in the family business, because they start off. I mean, these kids start off as rich kids that are already set up to do things like politics or, you know, media or all these, you know, big name jobs, I guess, all these rich people jobs. And that's not a surprise to me. You know, it's not a surprise to me that these big box companies, you know, these big corporations, these big CEOs own pretty much the entirety of the United States. It's all owned by just a couple of people. But we all know that, and we've all known that for a long time. I don't know if everybody remembers the 99%, but you know, when those Wall Street protests were happening, that was a big deal then, and that was kind of right before. I mean, that was during Obama's second term. It was, I believe, well, it might have been first and a second, but it was pretty much right before, you know, Q started happening. So it's not like we don't recognize that there's a connection in things, because there definitely is. But however, Q lies a lot about the connections to some of these people. For instance, the what's his name? The QAnon horn hat guy that is having an organic diet in jail right now.
Sure.
That guy.
I think the audience knows who you're talking
Can't
about. You
remember
don't
his
need to
fucking
use
name, but
his.
that guy.
You don't need to use his slave name. We know who you're talking about.
Like there's pictures of him with somebody, and they claim that it's Nancy Pelosi's nephew or some shit. That's just flat out a lie. Like it's not. That's not
Right.
real.
Yeah.
And they do that shit a lot. They make a lot of claims. There's like a whole list of their claims that you can find, like predictions, and none of them ever come true ever. And it's like once a month there's like a new, oh, the storm, it's coming, and that's what they call this. It's the storm, and nothing ever happens. So I mean, that it's hard to take the things that they do, that they do have some credibility to, and give them any kind of inch of credibility because of the incredulous things that they constantly say. So, are there big pedophile rings going on? Yeah, they are. It's not the way that everybody thinks they are, but they are. They're happening. Is every single person that's in politics or Hollywood, are they all pedophiles? No, not all of them. No. There was one. So that's we'll kind of have to go back and forth, just because. So QAnon basically believes in pretty much every single conspiracy theory out there. That they basically believe in all of them. But there was one specifically that really got me very angry with the community, was that Steven Spielberg is the reason why the girl from Poltergeist, the little girl, I can't remember her name, but he killed her. And
I remember you telling me about this.
yeah, and they say that he raped her so severely that she bled to death and died. And that is just not fucking true. Like, I'll be honest, I don't know much about Spielberg. He might be raping kids. I don't know. I doubt it. But, this child died from some type of issue that she had had for a very long time. And, you talk about saving the children and caring about kids, but you're going to shit all over the family members that have actually lost a child to something that they couldn't have possibly imagined happening in their lifetime, So it made me so angry at that point, that it did make me research into it a little bit more, because you see crazy shit. It's the internet. You're going to see crazy stuff all the time, but I don't know. This one, I guess, kind of hit closer to home. I'm not sure exactly why. But
she had there was like an intestinal blockage.
Yeah.
And which gave her septic shock, and I think she died of a heart attack.
And ultimately it killed her. Yeah.
Yeah. Which, like, I mean, I'll be completely honest. Like, I wasn't there, so I can't really. I can't have your level of certainty for it. I don't know. But I mean, I think that's the problem, is that, listen, there's a lot of nefarious shit that happens in this world that's covered up, and there's a lot of weird random shit that just happens too, and not all of it's connected. And the problem is that your average bystander has no way of proving things one way or the other. Like, it doesn't matter how much you Google Ashers, you can't be certain of what happened to that girl. You can read enough on you can read enough evidence on that points in one direction, but unless you were in the room when it happened, you don't know. You're reading other people's assessments of the facts, right? And that's the problem. I think the larger problem with QAnon, and the reason that it exists, is because we live in a world where there's too many fucking voices spouting too many different ideas, and we as an audience get to pick and choose what voices we listen to. So it's really easy to build yourself a bubble on social media if you only follow certain types of Twitter accounts, right? If you only read news from certain news organizations, your whole entire worldview can be drastically shifted and kind of aimed in one direction, just based on who you get your news from. And, these people that don't believe mainstream media, or think that it's biased, or have gone to getting information off YouTube, or these fucking random Twitter accounts and stuff. It wasn't so long ago that I remember being the type of person that wouldn't buy a CD at, Record Town. I would go to, some Reckless Records on the north side, right? That I wouldn't go buy. I wasn't interested in reading whatever Tom Clancy book everyone else was reading. I'd go buy a zine from somewhere, or, Chuck Palahniuk or something, right? Like I get the attraction to stuff that's not mainstream. I grew up listening to punk rock.
Well,
So like
sure.
I get this shit. I get the appeal of it. I get how sexy it is and how exciting it is. But, I think that you can like NoFX and the Rolling Stones. And I think that if you want to be a lover of music, you have to learn to appreciate both. And these people that kind of do this QAnon dive, I think that all of their audience, just from what I've seen, because you're right, the data that's released by Q, whoever Q is supposed to be, there's not a lot of it, and it's kind of very suggestive, and it just speaks like in generalities.
Right.
It talks about the Great Awakening, which is supposed to happen, but doesn't give too many details how or why. And you're right, there are certain dates that have been given and that have been proven wrong. But anyone that knows anything about this stuff knows that if you want to keep the lie going, you can't give dates. You can't give specifics, because if you do, then you're going to definitively be proven wrong. So these and I saw that list that you were talking to about Q predictions that have been proven wrong.
Right.
I wonder how many of those were actually made by these Q data dumps on 4chan, and how many were made by their followers, because that's the other thing about this whole Q thing is that, there's a core nugget of information, but everybody that comes to it seems to have their own interpretation of it. And there's lots of, like, there's the main theory, but then there's all these fringe theories that some people subscribe to, right? Some people think that Q is actually JFK Jr. and that he faked his death in the 90s, and this is him, I don't know, doing this from a cabin in Connecticut or some shit. Some people think that this is Trump playing five-dimensional chess against the Chinese, and that really it's about Trump versus the Chinese, and it's us at war with China. It doesn't really have anything to do with pedophiles and all this other stuff. That's a part of it.
Yeah.
But what what this is really about is foreign policy. And then some, I don't know. I've been ranting for a little bit.
No, it's okay. It's all right. So what it is are these extremist. Okay, everybody hates this term. Now it's become a degrading term, which really, I hate it. It pisses me off. But these are extremist conspiracy theorists who have always been around. I remember when Obama got in office. Okay, this is when I really took an interest into these things. And 2012 was right around the corner, and everybody was talking about the New World Order, and everybody was talking about these big, huge things. Those people are just Q now. They're the same people. This isn't a new idea. It's just that it seems to be growing, and possibly that's because, we have the internet. Everybody just spent a year in their homes and had nothing to do, except for, let their minds run wild. I'm not sure entirely, I think it's a factor of a couple different things, but, obviously it's growing, which, you would think, like in my case, I'm like, oh, that's great then. Then the movement's getting bigger. Wonderful. Except it's not, because just like with me and the Travis Walton thing, I don't give a fuck about a fun story. I give a fuck about the truth. And these people could care less about what the truth actually is. And I think that's why, I don't know, researching this was very difficult. And I think the reason why is because I kind of see it in the same light as religion, except for with religion, nobody knows what the hell's going to happen when you die. So like, I can forgive that, right? Because I don't know. I can't say anybody that follows any type of religion is wrong, because I don't fucking know. Except these people, it's not, they don't have that idea of like, we don't know. Like, most of the shit they say is so easily disproven that they just continue to be willfully ignorant of it, in spite of having a sense of community. I don't know. I don't get it. I guess I don't know.
That is
just wanting to be part of something bigger. I'm not sure.
here's where it gets tricky, and I think this is the exact thing that you told me earlier you wanted to avoid doing with tonight's episode is that so then you got to look at like why do people believe this, because so here's I think where we're at in this conversation so far. I'm kind of giving the Reader's Digest version of Q. Started on the internet.
Right.
Basically, it's claiming that Trump is working with these. He's fighting a secret war against hidden enemies, and there's a little. Some people think the hidden enemies are the Democratic Party. Some people think that it's the Chinese. Some people think that it's the satanic pedophile cult. There's no cohesion there, but the
Right.
stuff that people are in agreement about is that Donald Trump is a patriot and that he sacrificed everything, his name, his all this stuff, his family, put his family through all this to fight this war against the enemy. And who the enemy is changes, right? If you were to ask
Right.
some of these Q supporters who the enemies were over the summer, they would not have mentioned police officers. But if you see what happened in the riot in the Capitol 2 weeks ago, obviously they had no problem hurting police officers.
Right.
So,
Right.
so you're right, and there's a fair amount of that going on here, where the goalpost tends to move, right? Where certain things that that were set in stone earlier in the narrative, because mind you, this is only 3 years old.
Right.
Okay.
Well, yes and no. Like I said, it's just an evolvement of the people that have already been here, I believe.
Well, no. So here's something that I want to talk about real quick. So like I remember back in the '90s, and hopefully we have these guys on from the Kick Mom podcast. But there was a comic book, The Invisibles, that I talk about all the time, and they were very one of the plot lines of one of their story arcs was about the polio vaccine being a way to introduce nanobots into the population, right? And I think X-Files had the similar thing too, where they were trying to inoculate everybody against this disease that the aliens were going to carry.
Sure.
So like these ideas of vaccines being mass immunization being used for nefarious needs.
It's not new.
What No, it's not new, but it was kind of like when you talked about it, like in the realm of like the Invisibles or the X-Files, you were like, oh, that's interesting. Yeah, maybe. But now think about the fact that the anti-vaxxer movement has taken that same plot line that we all thought was dope as fuck when it was in the X-Files and the Invisibles. And now they're saying that it's real and we shouldn't take this COVID vaccine or fucking whatever. And think about how much like venom we have towards them, even though all they're doing is parroting back to us something that we thought was cool as fuck 20 years ago. But now it's like that kid that like comes to the party like wearing like a shirt from like last year's band or something. It's like a dude shows up with like a fucking Panic at the Disco shirt. You're like, whatever, dude. Like, get the fuck out of here. Like, those guys aren't cool anymore. You know what I mean? It's like that. I feel like that's how we're treating these guys. Like, conspiracy theorists are so fucking snobbish that like these guys are showing up with like theories from back in the day, and we're like, like whatever. They're like, no, seriously. And that was and that's another thing from Invisibles too. Is one of the another storyline is that there's this giant fucking rich people have this giant pedophile ring where they fucking human traffic people, right? So like these ideas aren't exactly new, but them being weaponized and attributed to like this stuff is true and Trump is the guy fighting against it. I almost wonder if QAnon existed in some form that wasn't tied to Trump being the fucking grand savior, if people might pay more attention to it. Because I think that's part of it that is kind of the most ridiculous and that's quickly being proven the most wrong, is that Donald Trump is this gigantic fucking patriot that is this agent of Q and
That's
doing all
probably
this
the
stuff.
easiest thing to prove wrong. I mean, out of
Right. Well, that's like kind of what we got tonight's before we hit the record button. We were talking, and I'm like, well, when this show goes live, either he's going to be out and this whole thing's fucking over, and QAnon might just be a distant memory, or the Capitol might be burning and someone,
yeah.
used the hammer of God or whatever their fucking super space weapon is that they talk about, and burn Q into the fucking mall.
Well, so I mean, even though like the name is probably going to change, it's probably going to evolve and be something else. I don't see this particular group of people going anywhere anytime soon. Just because they've always been around.
Yeah,
There
but
was
they used to be X-Files fans. That's my point.
well, yes and no. You know, back in my local news station shared an article that was comparing the election when Abraham Lincoln was elected, comparing it to now, and how when Lincoln was elected, he was also accused of rigging the election. There were all kinds of these big, theories that people had, none of which were true. So this isn't none of this is new. It's just instead they're just putting everything together. They're just throwing the shit on the wall and seeing what sticks, and that's what they're doing here. And then when it sticks for a second, they run with it. Then it falls off the wall and they throw something else. That's all it is.
Right.
So these kinds of people will always be around. But what they don't realize, and the thing is that I do genuinely think that they believe what they believe in. I do, and that's the sad part.
Oh no, they do.
They do.
They yeah.
And I feel badly for them, but what they don't realize is that they're hurting the truth. Just like I kind of talk about like fake like cryptid and paranormal videos and stuff like that. It hurts the actual community, the actual people that are out here digging for this stuff. And then they come along and they shit all over the credibility. And it's like, wow, thanks, now you made all of us look bad because you're an asshole. So they don't realize, because they can't, for some reason they're incapable of taking a step back and looking at everything, and which we've talked about before on the show, making it all make sense. That's the thing. They think all this stuff is tied together, but when you really if you sat with one of those cork boards and really tried to piece it all together, it doesn't all connect. it unravels pretty quickly when you start doing that, and they're incapable of doing that for whatever reason.
I think the thing that was probably hurt the most is our concept of patriotism, because unfortunately these people have made it a part of their brand, is that they're patriots. They are the real patriots. Donald Trump is the real patriot. He personifies patriotism because he's fighting this war that he's not even fucking fighting. So it's like the fact that is the face of patriotism now. The way that he acts and the way he responds is the way that a patriot responds. It kind of creates this it creates this culture that this is what American is and this is who we are, and we're not. And it's all,
right.
You know what I mean? And I think that to me is the most damaging. And something that you brought up earlier about like how we've seen all this before, and you bring up the Lincoln thing. I wanted to bring up the satanic panic of the 80s.
Yes.
Because
yes.
that might be a little bit before your time, but I mean, like, I remember I could I'll tell you so. Well, I'm obviously on the show to talk and tell stories, so I might as well. But like, I remember my mom having me convinced that satanic cults were all over the fucking place.
It was a big thing, right?
Yeah, and Dungeons and Dragons was evil, and metal was evil. Heavy metal music was evil, and anyone wearing anything that was snake adjacent was a Satan worshiper, and that all of this stuff, that was just fucking nonsense. Like, dude, I play D&D all the fucking time now, and like, there's nothing satanic about it,
Right.
at all. And I mean, I guess people can be goofballs about anything, but like, if you become co-opted into worshiping the devil from playing a pen and paper game, then Jesus, keep them away from fucking Buffy. I mean, or Final Fantasy. Like, don't let your daughters watch Buffy. They're going to become lesbian witches. Although honestly, most of the Buffy fans,
please let them watch Buffy.
yeah, of all the Buffy fans I've met, there's lots of lesbian witches there, so maybe that's not too far off. I don't know. So I mean, like, that's always been a thing, the satanic panic deal, and that's something that I think we as a Protestant, Christian country, like, why wouldn't we see, Satanists as being this kind of like adversary lurking in the shadows. And it's funny that I even use that word, because I don't know how much time you spend around Protestants, but they like to use the word the adversary instead of talking about the devil. Like, oh, I was feeling weak today, but it was just the adversary trying to kill my spirit. Or I don't know, whatever.
Never,
It's linked.
I never
Yes,
heard of that, but that's great.
because they don't. If they feel if they say the word Satan, it gives him power, so they refer to him as the adversary. So, I mean, the fact that we kind of would create, like, Superman's kind of boring on his own, right? He needs Lex Luthor. Batman needs the Joker. So every once in a while, we kind of invent these imaginary enemies just to have somebody to pin shit on and to go up against. And the idea of there being this satanic, like, cult of that's trying to destroy democracy and destroy our country. It's kind of a recurring thread that pops up from time to time. And unfortunately, there's a lot of weird fucking sick people out there that do crazy shit.
They do,
and,
right?
And it lends credibility.
Something's wrong with them that, they definitely, they take it way too far. Like, there's extremists and then there's like super extremists, and they take it way too far. And that would be like I would agree, the Capitol building people that ended up, getting in, I think would be just way out there. I would consider that. And mass hysteria is also very much a thing. You get enough people afraid, and you can tell them almost anything just because they're so fearful, and they don't have the answers. So they will look to anywhere they can to get any type of answers. And that happens, and we've seen that in examples of like the Salem witch trials and the dancing plague in where was that, Romania or some shit. But when we see that, we've seen that stuff happen as well. Now, granted, we're a little more civilized than we were back then. Not much, but a little bit. So, every time one of these groups emerge again and gain steam and they become popular again, we're not killing a bunch of people, but hopefully, we don't ultimately get to that point and let it get to that point.
We came pretty close a couple weeks ago.
We did.
That's exactly what they wanted to do.
It was. Yep, exactly. And so now we're kind of, at this point where I think what's important is if you're legitimately concerned about this particular group of people and what they could be capable of doing, as crazy as it's going to sound, I suggest you kill them with kindness, really. I highly suggest reading into deprogramming and how to talk to these people in a way that you can get them to listen, because you've got to understand, again, they very much believe the things that they're saying or reading about or whatever. And so first of all, you need to, in order for them to take you seriously at all, you have to gain the trust with them. And then from there, you have to go through different deprogramming techniques. And, it's sad to have to say that, but I mean, these people they're basically a cult. I mean, they're indoctrinated. And so you have to help them come out of it if you have a legitimate concern. And you know what? Most people, unfortunately, they're not going to take the time to even do that. So
Unfortunately, I completely agree with you.
It sucks, right?
Yeah, I had over the past week and a half, a family member of mine who I knew was kind of like right leaning, and I basically just kind of, instead of wanting to argue about stuff, and I won't get into it here. I guess I could, but I probably won't. I can even chart how this whole thing happened, about how they kind of got into this. And it wasn't, it kind of comes from racism.
Yeah.
I guess, I hate to say it, but let me walk that back a little bit. Let's not say racism. Let's say xenophobia. Let's say, I think that's probably a better word. It's not so much about racial superiority as it is about fearing cultural changes or other cultures kind of developing the prevalence that white society has enjoyed for historically. So and that I think is a little bit different than racism, but I mean, people want to argue about that, fine. But basically, I knew this person was right leaning and exhibited some of these characteristics, and it posted some stuff that was a little suspect. And finally, after the riot happened on the Capitol, they posted something about Antifa
Oh my God.
being responsible for it, and they did it the day of, right?
Yeah.
It was like that night, and I was like, well, let's see how this plays out. And then, as they started to break down the footage of who was actually in Pelosi's office and all this stuff, who these people were, um you started to realize that these were very much just white people. So
Yeah.
most of them looked like kind of like rednecks.
Right.
So then that story changed. So then I contacted her one on one, this family member, and was like, let's talk about this because I want to hear what you have to say. I'm not here to goof on you. I'm not like recording you so that I can go on my podcast later and spill my guts about what a lunatic you are.
Sure.
Like I'm genuinely like interested. Like, let's hear what you have to say about this. And what struck me the most was, and I mentioned this earlier, but what struck me the most was moving the goalpost. How like something is like, this is what the theory is on Monday. And, and then because everything's always like the net's just about to close. Trump's about to finally launch his master plan.
Yep.
And it's, he's waiting to the last minute. And then the feds are going to swoop in and arrest all the Democrats. And that's why, at one point she goes, why do you think there's so many troops in Washington right now for this inauguration? There's never been this many troops in Washington for an inauguration. The troops are there because they're going to arrest the Senate because they finally have evidence that they threw the fucking election. And I was like, no, people broke into the Capitol with zip ties and guns, and we're going to kill fucking members of the Senate, and that's why there's fucking security there. You know what I mean? That's why you're right. Historically, we haven't had these issues with inaugurations, but look at what the culture you're doing is fucking. Yeah. I mean, but that doesn't mean everyone's going to be arrested. Yeah. Well, it's to preserve order in the face of chaos because we're going to war with China Monday night. Like, okay, well, it's fucking Tuesday now and it hasn't happened. So what does that mean? Well, no, but like, dude, Trump's out of office tomorrow. It's over. It's fucking over, dude. It never happened.
That's what they still say, though. But he's not leaving. There's people today that are saying that he's not leaving tomorrow, and it's like, so what's going to be the next theory when he does? It's like, what are they going to come out with next? I mean, it's kind of almost like a bad soap opera,
I honestly think that they're going to just run out of gas at some point. And I don't think there's going to be a grand apology from any of these people.
No.
I think they're going to think about it like they think about that summer that they were really into fish,
Yeah.
and or like OAR. And like, remember when OAR were a fucking thing and everyone thought that OAR were really badass, and now nobody knows who the fuck I'm talking about right now when I mentioned OAR? It's like that. You know what I mean? Like, and they're from Ohio.
Yeah, I
so,
know who that is.
Exactly. No fucking clue. So I think this is just going to be like a, hey, remember when thing. And that's the unfortunate part, is that the damage that these people have done with their goofy fucking conspiracy theories and the amount of like hatred and like malcontent that they've spread, they'll even forget about it 6 months from now. When this whole thing, this is my honest to God, if you want me to prophesize for a second, nothing's going to fucking happen. These people are going to be too proud to admit that they were wrong. So they're just going to fucking move on with their lives. They're going to accept Biden's not the worst thing in the world. They'll find something else to fucking rally behind or hate. Like, I think that because Q's been noticeably quiet for a couple months now. I think whoever these crackpots were and that started this whole thing, they took whatever money they could make off it, because right off the bat they were asking for donations to research this shit, which is like, anytime somebody creates a PayPal account and asks for donate, you know what the fucking deal is. They're just trying to make money. These people took whatever they took, they ran off. There'll probably be a documentary about them 20 years from now, but like, they're not sticking their head out anytime soon, because they realize that the feds might be coming for them next.
Yeah.
When you know what I mean? When Biden gets his office, his first order of business might be find out who the fuck started this shit and string these people up. Or or maybe not. Maybe they'll just let the whole thing go away and say, okay, these 4 college kids are hiding with their tails behind their fucking head, or with their tails behind their back. They're out of the picture. There's gonna be no new dumps.
I hope that they honestly do hold people accountable. I think the reason why stuff like this breeds is because we have just everybody, every group, every single individual doesn't have a good sense of accountability. It's hard. Holding yourself accountable is difficult.
Who started the Richard Gere gerbil story?
What? I don't know.
I don't know either.
You're
Does it
right.
matter? Did they have to bring these people? Like, that's the thing, is that like if they brought somebody to justice and said that like this was the guy that made up the Richard Gere gerbil story, and he like lost a lawsuit. You know, like think about how many times the National Enquirer loses like defamation lawsuits.
Yeah,
You know what I mean? Do they
sure.
stop being the National Enquirer? No, they're just like, all right, whatever, fine, fuck
We'll
you.
move
Here's
on,
$15
yeah.
million. You
Right,
know,
right. I agree with
so
that. I guess I just mean on a more personal level, on a more values type of level, not so much a let's actually go out and like find this person. And just like being a white person and watching someone be racist and not saying anything, your compliance is the same thing as guilt. So like you shouldn't just be like, ah, it's fine. Just like when you go to Thanksgiving and you have the crazy uncle, and I have the crazy uncle that will go on and on and on for hours about this shit. You're not like, okay, dude, listen, let me tell you about this. Nobody's stopping these people from doing it because they're just like, they'll just go away. But then what happens when they don't go away? They storm the fucking Capitol building. That's what happens. Like,
well, in my case with my person, I kind of have just framed it to her as like, okay, she sends me these YouTube links and I watch them, and everyone that she sent me that has given any kind of timeline has all been proven wrong.
right.
And I'll be like, okay, well, hey, this video that you sent me, and that's the thing, is sometimes she sends me videos that are like a week old and they have already been disproven, and I'm like, did you even watch this? Or are you just like, is this like, I honestly think that some of these people, it's just like a fucking email chain that they're on. It's like a chain letter. And they
Yeah.
just keep forwarding these posts and forwarding these memes and forwarding these YouTube links. And they don't even really watch them. It's just more like, oh, have you heard about this? It's like having to know like the latest fucking gossip. You know what I mean? It's like, oh, I heard China's got fucking human farms, and that we're gonna use Odin's hammer to fucking crack the surface and nuke their facilities from the underground because they have bunker bases where they're harvesting stem cells and all this. And you're just like, what? And then, oh my god, you got to watch the video. And it's like,
Yeah.
did you watch the video, or did someone repeat it back to you? You know, so like, yeah, I mean, I've been sent links that like have been expired, and I'm like, this video was taken down like a week ago. Oh, it's an old link. I'm sorry. I'm like, why the fuck are you still sending it around? Like, you don't know that? And then you watch these videos and they talk about something that's going to happen on Wednesday, and it's already Thursday, and you're like, well, that didn't happen. And but the timeline's not important. It's all going to happen. It's all going to happen. The timeline's not important. And it's just at that point you see that the person is once again moving the goalpost, and it's like they want this to be true so much that they're literally warping reality around it to
Right.
make the narrative consistent. But number one, and this is why I think that tomorrow or on the 20th we'll see the end of this, unless a suitcase nuke goes off. I think that there's going to be a vacuum where there's going to be no more Q, right? Making these fucking assertions or these data drops. There'll be no more Trump in the White House to like try to say that all his stupid fucking tweet. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
there's gonna be a vacuum just naturally. He's off Twitter. He's off social media. Right now, he may get back on Parler and do whatever, but like that's not the fucking same thing,
No.
right? And he's not going to be the president anymore, and it's going to be hard to keep shaping these narratives, keep warping reality around this idea that he was a plant and that he was this patriot that was fighting this war. You know what I mean? Like I feel like the whole thing is really going to run out of steam when he's gone. There's going to be a lot of disillusioned people, and you might see like you're going to see a lot of people just kind of turn around and go home. And then I think you're from a hardcore group of like, because militias have always been around.
Right.
You might see like them splinter and go off in different directions, and you might see the people that were hardcore racist versus the people that it wasn't really about race. It was about the Democrats and the child molesters and the satanic stuff, right? You might get one group which is more racist, one group that's more religious fanatics, right? They might kind of splinter into different groups that are where the beliefs are more cohesive, because that's the only thing that I think stopped this from getting even bigger than it did, was that there really was no cohesion of belief outside of the fact that Trump was a patriot, which is the most ridiculous aspect of this whole thing anyway.
Yeah.
You know,
Well, one thing that these people need to do, and it's very simple, they need to calm the fuck down. These people are going to die of heart attacks at an early age because they get so upset and worked up. You were talking about how you were trying to talk to your person and you just, honestly ask without judgment. When I try to do that, it's always taken horribly. And, it ends up, me being just trying to understand and me asking questions. And then when I ask the questions, they get angry and they're defensive. And then that goes to the name calling and
right?
stuff like that. Case in point, which is not, just to show that these people, it's not just Q. These people exist in all groups, was the Megalodon argument that I got into. I don't think I know I shared it with you, but I don't think I've mentioned it at all on the show because it just was kind of drama. Anyway, one of my cryptozoologist friends posted an article and had mentioned that about some new species being discovered in the ocean, and had mentioned that he won't be surprised when I call him up and tell him that the megalodon has been proven, to exist now, because of all these discoveries. Some other people jumped on there and insisted that the megalodon will never be proven to exist because we know it exists, but the government hides it. And I didn't understand. And I'm like, well, why would the government hide the megalodon? And
Because it's a pedophile.
he's a Satanist pedophile. We gotta
It's the oldest. It's the oldest shark in the world, and it fucks all the younger sharks, which is every shark.
He's a pedophile shark. Well, and it just, so I'm asking, like, why would they do? And I even throw in my own spin because obviously I don't fucking trust the government, guys. I'm probably a target to the fucking government. I'm over here trying to prove that fucking aliens exist and shit. I'm trying to prove something new and crazy to the world. They don't like me. We're not friends. So, I throw my own thing out there and I'm like, listen, if the megalodon existed, if it existed today and we prove that it still exists, then we could create a funding program to study them, and they would fill that funding program with all kinds of unrelated bullshit, and they'd make money off of it that way, because that's what they do whenever they create these programs or whenever they put out a new funding bill or whatever. And it ended up with me being called redheaded garbage and trash, and this person really hated redhead because he just continued to drill into the fact that I was a redhead.
Well, are you really though? Are you really though?
No, I'm not.
Exactly.
But it was just so bizarre to me. It was so weird. It was just the lashing out. It went from 0 to 1,000 over one question. And I wasn't being illogical. I wasn't being rude or aggressive or anything like that. I was just trying to understand, and it would just went way off the deep end. And so
that's some incel rage, right there. I think that's a couple different things. I don't know if it was necessarily like,
and it could be, that is another thing. I happen to be an attractive young woman in the field, which is unheard of anyway.
I mean, I don't know how many of those statements are actually accurate.
I mean, all of them.
You're okay.
You're redheaded garbage, even.
You're not even redheaded. This whole thing is fucking subterfuge.
That's what makes me garbage, I guess. I don't know. It's weird. It was so weird. I don't understand why it. I don't know why it played out the way it did. It was the weirdest string of insults I've ever had, and it was just strange. It was like, they were like, why don't you go? Well, they even like mentioned me dyeing my hair. They're like, why don't you go pour some more chemicals on your head? And I was like, right. If I didn't want to be a redhead, I would just change it. You keep like coming at me with this redheaded thing, like it's an insult. Like I don't like that or something. And it's like, the fuck? It's weird.
Right.
It just was weird. But that happens a lot with a lot of things. In similar mindsets, this is kind of, these people also do subscribe to the Q ideas. They do. And so this is probably connected to Q somehow. I'm sure this is connected to Trump being the savior or whatever. But
he's gonna ride that megalodon.
I would. I mean, I don't know about anybody else, but I'll be the first in line. But these people, they just become belligerent whenever you try to question their beliefs at all. They just go way off the deep end, and it's like, so I don't. That's how it's impossible to talk to them because of those reasons. And It makes me sad because I would love to understand where you're coming from. If you're listening to this and you hate me already because you disagree with everything I've said thus far, fucking come talk to me, please. Come talk to me and let me ask you fucking questions without you calling me
Right.
redheaded garbage.
But so that, I mean, obviously that person was being an asshole, and you're not redheaded garbage. But I think that the reason people are apprehensive to talk about it is because I don't know. I think that if you put a camera and a microphone up to a lot of people that believe in cryptids or the supernatural, they'll get a little cagey about having to confidently talk about their beliefs. Right. And that's a hard thing for people to do. It takes a lot of, I mean, think about when I first came on the show. Like it takes that's hard shit to talk about because you know how you're going to sound.
It's
And
really
you know that
fringe, right?
yeah, and you know that people aren't going to believe you, and you know that people are going to think you're fucking crazy or whatever. And that's kind of why they love these little Q bubbles, is because it's just an echo chamber of people agreeing with them and telling them that they're so smart. Because that's that's the other thing too, is that the Q people think that they're woke and we're all asleep,
Yeah.
and that they're shepherding us all towards the Great Awakening when Trump's master patriotic savior plan is, his messianic plan is fucking revealed, and we realize that what we thought was going on for the past 4 years wasn't really happening, and this is what really is, and they kind of are on the inside, they already knew it. And we kind of talk about this whole, like, how do you talk to people that are Q supporters, and how do you talk to them about coming away from the cult? If you go and read their Twitter, like, or that Reddit thing that you sent me, you know what I mean? That Reddit group, they're kind of on that side of the fence. They're doing the same thing. They're talking amongst themselves about how to be supportive for their family who are not Q believers now, because after the Great Awakening, we're going to be the ones that are disillusioned. We're going to be the ones that have had reality ripped away from us and that are left, like, in shock. And they're preparing themselves to shepherd us through into this next era of human existence after all the pedophiles are round up and executed in the streets, and we can go and live in peace and harmony, because that's what we want to do.
Right.
The world should be a better place than it is, and what's stopping us from being that man-made utopia is this satanic, this evil cabal of Satan worshiping pedophiles that have infiltrated the Democratic Party, Hollywood, the Chinese government, and Comet Pizza. And that once the grand facade is ripped away, like, we're going to be the ones shitting in our pants and drawing on the wall with it, right? Which I think is funny, because they're obviously the ones that are wacko. And as far as, like, how do we deprogram them, I don't think we can, because I've tried to have conversations with them, and all that I can do, as far as I can get, is just be a listener. Because even when I try to say things like, "Oh, well, this video says this and that was proven wrong," well, no, it doesn't matter. Like,
Right.
look
It's
at, like,
like a brick wall.
and look at, like, the COVID thing, because a lot of these people were COVID deniers
Yeah.
for the longest time. And especially the people in my life that I'm talking about specifically didn't think COVID was real. Didn't think COVID was real. COVID's bullshit. It's all bullshit. Then they got it,
Yeah.
and now they're blaming the Chinese. I'm like, well,
Right.
remember when you said that it wasn't real? Like, you were wrong. Well, yeah, but I mean, the Chinese government did this, and it's a pandemic, and Fauci had stock in something, or I don't know what the fucking bullshit is. But it's like, but what about the? Well, hold on. I remember talking to you 3 months ago, and you thought this whole thing was fucking made
Yeah.
up. But
Mm.
you had it, and you know how serious it was, because you were on your ass for 3 weeks, right? You guys both missed a lot of work, right? You were all real sick, so it's real. Yeah, but this is China going to war with us, and thank God Trump's out there playing 5D chess with them.
Or just you're like, oh, it's real. And
What?
they're like, well, what about BLM rioting over the summer?
Right. Exactly. Oh my
Just
God.
pull up something totally unrelated, and you're like, what does that? And they're like, well, China Joe, and you're like, what does that have to do with anything we're talking about?
So I had a contractor at my work come in, and me and him were, I don't know, we were talking about weed, and then we were talking about Rogan, and then we were talking about whatever. And then he started going down the Q hole, and I just kept my mouth shut and was like, oh, okay. And he's telling me about how there was a laptop that China stole from Hunter. Oh, and that was the thing too. I don't know if I ever got to this point earlier, where originally it was Antifa that raided the Capitol,
Yeah.
and then once we saw the pictures of the people that raided the Capitol, and it was clearly not Antifa, then the story changed to, well, those guys, they're actually like CIA operatives, and that dude with the face paint and like the beaver hat, like he's ex Navy intelligence. Get the fuck out of here! No, he's not. So it's like they tried to like rewrite the story that these guys were patriots, and that and that's why they're all Southerners and they're white men, is because they work for the government, and they're military law enforcement, and that's why the police let them in, is because they wanted them to storm the Capitol and steal all their laptops so that they could get proof of them fixing the election, because that's supposed, what is there, like a Excel file on Pelosi's laptop of like where the fucking stolen votes came from or some shit, and like that's why they did all this stuff, and that's what the riot on the Capitol really was them getting these documents for Q, or for the fucking feds or something, even though it's like I'm sure they could have just gotten that stuff if they wanted to. And that was the deal with Hunter Biden over the summer, was that they had he was compromised because he had a drug addiction, and the Chinese had videotapes of him banging kids or something, and that they were going to use that to influence Joe, because Biden was going to do whatever he had to do to protect his kid. And that's why Trump was the CIA's choice to be president, was because he was so rich that he was untouchable because he didn't know anything to anybody. And I remember I said to the guy, but he's not rich. Because this was like right when like his tax returns came out, and you found out the dude was in debt, and he actually owed somebody like $8 million.
Yeah,
and I was
he's
like,
rich off of borrowed money, right?
Yeah, I was like, but dude, he's not independently wealthy. In fact, we don't even know who he owes his greatest amount of debt to. And the guy was like very dismissive. He's like, whatever. He's like, but no, you got to understand, that's why Trump's the perfect candidate for all this. Is because I'm like,
yeah,
what? But no, your whole point was that he's untouchable because he's rich. Like, he was buddies with Epstein too. Like, there's more footage of Trump with Epstein than Hunter Biden.
Yep.
Yeah, but okay, well, maybe, I don't know, but this is what the guy says. He's like, I don't know, but okay, so what? But my point is that the Democrats, and I'm like, all right, dude.
Yeah, they just they will not hear they won't hear the facts, and it's like, and so it doesn't. Again, it goes back to that: make it make sense. It has to make sense in order for it to work. Either way, at the end of the day, we are not. We're not in danger of these people. Can they do some damage? Of course they can. Everybody's capable of doing that. And if every single one of them decided to just suddenly be violent, they could. They could cause some damage. However, what I will say is that, first of all, not every Republican is part of their group. Okay, so don't sit here and say Republicans when you're talking about these crazy extremists. Okay, I don't. Even though, yes, they do vote Republican, that's not fair to logical Republicans. And that's coming from a pretty diehard lefty. So, second of all, we outnumber them. Sane people outnumber them. Our military most likely outnumbers them.
Right.
They're not going to topple the entire country. They might knock us on our ass a little bit, but at the end of the day, as silly as that might sound and as cliche as it is, we're Americans. Like, we're not going to let that shit happen. It's just not going to go well. Democrats have guns too. So believe it or not. So that's not an issue. Don't be afraid of these people. If it's people in your personal life that you have seen spiral into the Q rabbit hole, again, your best bet for these people that you directly love and you care about is to gain their trust, and then again work on deprogramming, because they believe these things, and it's difficult to do, or you can try to wait it out and see if it blows over. It probably, in name it will, but they'll probably just jump on the next bandwagon. But that's your person. Your person needs to work through some heavy shit that they got going on that is beyond this conspiracy stuff.
Yeah.
Or at least maybe try to turn them on to some better conspiracies that actually make sense. And Tell them to go pick up
like our show.
yeah, right. Turn them on to our show. Tell them to go pick up a book by John Keel, and really turn them on to stuff that actually fucking matters. Because in the grand scheme of things, my honest opinion about the human race is that we're not shit anyway. So we just really don't. We're so insignificant. None of it matters. It's probably pretty nihilistic, but I mean, it is what it is. I don't know about these people. But still, I'll keep the invite open. Hell, I'll even have you on the show. I'll have you on the show if you can have a sit down, calm, intelligent conversation about these things. If you think I'm wrong, if you think that I've missed something here, please come speak out. I'm not, even though I'm rejoicing in the fact that Trump's been banned from Twitter. I'm not a censored type of person. I'm not for censorship. So I will always have you on here to share your side. I just ask that at the same time you hear mine, and then that's it. So yeah.
I'll do you one better. I'm not even gonna try to tell you anything that I believe in. I just want to hear what they have to say, especially in the wake of whatever happens tomorrow.
Yeah.
That was kind of just how I framed everything with the cure in my life. I was just like, hey, listen, in about a week and a half, one of us is going to be proven right, one of us is going to be proven wrong. So there's no point in arguing about it now, because at the end of the day, history is going to unfold. And it's not like, she's not like saying like, oh, you got to make sure you got like cases of water or something, or like whatever. You know what I mean? She's not like a proper, because I think her beliefs about us going to war with China didn't really affect us too much, like on the south side of Chicago. But I think that was kind of it. Was like, all right, well, let's just see what happens. Like, let's not argue about it now.
Yeah, that's fair.
You tell me what you think, and I'll respond to it, but and not be critical, but let's just see. And I think that what's interesting about this show is that, this show is going to drop tomorrow, and we are going to probably at 5:00, like Central Standard Time, in the midst of who knows what. But I mean, we might look like complete assholes.
We might.
If we wake up tomorrow morning and there's some kind of crazy shit that's going on, where like people are being rounded up in the middle of the night, and this is it, and Trump's not leaving, and Biden is not elected, or there's some kind of, God forbid, there's some kind of catastrophe at the inauguration. I think we're kind of, it's the eve of history one way or the other.
And I am adult enough to admit when I'm wrong. So, I would happily do whatever. I don't know. What should we do? I should make some type of deal, I guess. If Trump doesn't leave tomorrow.
I'm the wrong person to ask this.
I know. Usually
go ahead.
Usually it involves my boobs, but I want to make it bigger than that. There's not much that's bigger than that, but but and no, not my butt.
Your belt.
my belt, it might be bigger than my boobs. I don't know. What should I 'cause I'll do whatever. I am 99% sure that Joe Biden's going to be the president tomorrow. So I'm not really fearful. What should I do, Pat? You got any ideas?
No, I've none. I have absolutely none.
I'll delete the whole show. The show will be canceled officially if Trump is president. No, you know what? No, fuck that. If Trump remains president tomorrow, we will rebrand the show completely, and I will be a cure.
No, I think you should. I think I know what I would like to see, but I don't know if it would really be safe. I would say that you would submit to a get your documentary crew,
okay,
to follow you on a date but see, shit's not open. But let's hypothetically speaking say that shit was open, and we could. I would say let's put you out on a date with the TV with the film crew, and it's you and your buddy from down the road. And let's just see if you guys hit it off. You can go to a bowling alley and have a few burgers and a few beers, and just kind of see where the night goes from there. You know?
Okay. All right. That's easy. I mean, I could do that anyway. Is there a demand for people to watch me go on dates? I go on them.
No, do you know who I'm referring to?
No, I don't.
Oh, come on, Ashley. Think.
Oh no, I don't know who. I don't. Which one?
The world's biggest dick, of course.
Oh, that guy. Oh yeah. I don't remember his name. Yes. Yeah, absolutely. I will do that. We will have we'll go on a full date. We'll have a whole sex tape and everything. It'll be great. It'll be.
Oh my God. You don't have, I mean, I'm not trying to pimp you out to him.
Well, come on now. Let's be real. Nobody wants to see me fucking eat hamburgers with this guy.
I mean, once it's edited down, it could be kind of funny, you know.
No, they want me to go and have some good old sausage is what they is what you guys want. That's fine. You know, I don't care what it is. Nothing violent. Well, that might be considered violent. But nothing violent. But I will do whatever. I don't care. Fucking tell me what you want me to do. You know what? It doesn't matter anyway. We'll already know by the time the show airs tomorrow. So
yeah, I think we dodged this. I mean, yeah, this is what I would suggest. Yeah, exactly. I would just if something crazy happens in the afternoon, just don't upload this show right away, and you could just cut out these past like 10 minutes, and then it's just
the whole thing. Like I didn't say that.
Yeah,
That's
we
cool.
should do that. I mean, we could. I don't know if it'd be worth doing it, but I think that'd be funny to like re-record the ending. Be like, you know what I think is going to happen, and then when it comes out, it looks like we were somehow.
We predicted it. No. Yeah, we're like, oh, tomorrow Trump's going to stay and this and that. That would be pretty. That would make some money off of it. Some good money off of it.
I mean, I hope that it's just a peaceful transition, and
I do too.
You know,
I do too.
We can all kind of move forward and just kind of get on with our lives.
Yeah, I don't,
because we still have this pandemic to deal with. Like, we're not out of the woods on this shit yet either.
Right. Well, there's a lot. There's a lot of upheaval going on in the country right now, and we need to get back to being, in some type of unity together. Maybe we're not all going to agree on the same things all the time. However, there is compromise to be had. You just have to be willing to give a little, and and then you'll get some back. That's how compromise works. And I think we can do that. I think it's possible. We just have to really focus on making it work. And that's where I'm at with it. I think I feel pretty good about tomorrow. Of course, I'm still a little apprehensive because that shit just happened a couple weeks ago, the Capitol building thing, and so we're all going to be on edge. But I think for the most part, it'll be okay.
Yeah,
I think it'll be fine. So, but that's all I have to say about it. In the meantime, I'll keep you guys updated on the Travis Walton situation, and we'll see you next Wednesday.